Empower Active, a discussion that we have around with who are inspiring and kicking butt all over the U.S. and all over the world, who give us motivation to live our own version of an active, healthy lifestyle. Our chats are brought to you by Sportswear, and remember that we love to have your comments and questions to add to the discussion. So please feel free to throw those in via Twitter to @Sportswear and use the hashtag strongwomen. And with that, we'll get on to today's discussion. Our guest today is rock climber and tribe member Sam Caligiuri. Did I say that almost right?
You did.
Sam, thanks so much for joining us
today.
Thank
you for having me.
Great. Well, I mentioned that you're a rock climber, but your background, you actually started as a gymnast, and you were a gymnast from age 4 to 16, but an injury ended your career. So can you describe for us, what that time was like for you when you had all this time invested in being a gymnast, and then all of a sudden it kind of abruptly came to an end for you?
I can. So, growing up as a gymnast, we're in the gym like 30 hours a week after school. The biggest shell shocker was I would come home after school, and that was like a first. Never came home after school. We'd get picked up and go straight to the gym, and I'd stay there till probably about 9 o'clock and then come home. So, the hardest concept that I had to grasp was what to do with all my free time. I didn't really have much of a social life, so I couldn't get sucked into that. And I kind of would bounce around from different sports, just trying to fill that void of competition. Because hanging out with people made it difficult because I was so competitive, just from day to day. I was always trying to outdo someone, even if it was just walking down the sidewalk. I'd walk down it cooler or something. But yeah, so that was definitely a shell shocker. Was having just a bunch of free time.
And did that also impact a little bit your identity and the way in which you viewed yourself? Because for so long, I'm sure you saw yourself as a competitive gymnast. And so did you find it a challenge, not just with the free time that you had, but to then figure out who you were without gymnastics?
It did. It's taken many years, and it's only until the last couple years that I've actually been able to re-identify myself. But yeah, pretty much you grow up and, you're a gymnast. You train and you compete and you train some more. And so quitting it, I missed out on a lot of development of just personal gains of, who am I, what do I actually enjoy doing. I didn't have any of that, and it was very difficult to figure out who I was, what I wanted to do, and it was almost just wandering around in a cave without a headlamp. You're kind of just feeling your way through. You're not really too sure which direction you're going in.
And also, I know that you've talked a little bit about that time became a time of depression for you also. And how did you deal with that and navigate that?
I didn't deal with it very well at the beginning, at all. I became a rebellious teenager, doing everything that you told me I wasn't allowed to do. I would seek out and, of course, do it. I dealt with insomnia, so I didn't sleep. So the hours that I should be sleeping, I was mostly sneaking out and partying and then staying up and just, everything that I wasn't allowed to do, drinking, eating candy, going out on dates with boys. I definitely rebelled, and, it put me into an even more spiral of depression. Because, of course, the more you do drugs and the more you come down from them, the more your depression gets worse. You feel more lost and more empty. And it took many years of spiraling further down to eventually like come out on top with that. But I definitely didn't. I rebelled a lot.
And so then, how did you find rock climbing?
So I got sent to Oregon when I was 18, and I hung out there for a little while in like an adult rehab, which of course continued to rebel and got kicked out. And so then I was wandering on my own, because at 18 now I'm in Oregon, so I had to find a job and, support myself. And, my parents were still there, but I was definitely more on my own, as I should be since I got kicked out. I should have to figure things out, which was good. But one of the boys I started dating was a rock climber. And about 1920, he kind of introduced me to it one summer, and it didn't take. I just dabbled with it. And when I moved to Salt Lake City a couple years later, I had been racing downhill mountain bikes and took a really gnarly crash, and it really scared me. And I was had to take a lot of steps backwards in biking, which I was hard to grasp. I had been excelling so much, and then to have to go back to the beginning was very difficult for me, especially being competitive. And I decided to dabble back in rock climbing, and I haven't stopped in about 4 years. So. And
how did rock climbing? How did climbing help you? It was one of the things that helped you get out of that depression phase that you were going through.
So the biggest thing is when I decided to fully pick up rock climbing, it was something that I had chosen to do on my own. I wasn't at the time that kind of edged me into it, which some other sports had been. And so it was something that I had chosen to take up on my own. And so it was kind of my passion as opposed to a passion shared with a significant other that they did, and then I did it with them. It was something that if I started dating someone else, they would be doing it with me, because it was kind of my own thing. It's something I chose, and honestly, the climbing community is so small, and it's family oriented, that wherever you go, you're never alone. There's always someone there to cheer you up. It's a very unique community, which has definitely helped pull me out of it. And you get to travel a lot, so that's nice.
That's always fun. Just want to remind people who are watching us that you're watching Women in Power Active, and we're talking with Sam Caligiuri, rock climber. So feel free to join the discussion with your comments or questions. You can tweet them to @YouAreSportswear. Use the hashtag strongwomen. So Sam, you talked about getting into rock climbing. What was it that maybe drew you in as far as when you decided this is the thing for me? What about it maybe made you fall in love with rock climbing?
Probably a lot had to do with it that I became good at it quite quickly. So again, still being quite competitive, being better than some of the guys I was climbing with that had been climbing for longer than me definitely drove me to train harder and continue to be better than them. And it was, it's not a very expensive sport. With racing bikes and skiing, you got to pay for season lift tickets, and skis are expensive. Climbing, the initial getting gear, quick draws and ropes and shoes can be a little expensive, but as far as climbing outside goes, it's free. There might be an occasional little national park fee to get into the park, but a lot of times it's free, other than the gas, the drive there. So it makes it much easier to, when you don't make a lot of money, to climb.
And you mentioned that you were good at it, to start, or got good very quickly. And how much did your gymnastics background help you in climbing, both physically and mentally?
Sure. It's having so much training from a young age, whether it be in gymnastics or any other kind of sports, you're very in tune with the muscles in your body and how to engage them. So that was a huge step up in training. I wasn't starting off with like having to figure out how to engage certain muscle groups to do certain movements. It was I did have to build up some climbing strength because I hadn't been a gymnast in a long time, but definitely having that discipline and that control, like mind over matter and mind over your muscles, definitely was good. And as far as a fear factor goes, just having the mental head from gymnastics. I mean, you get scared learning new skills, but you still you go for it. You kind of overcome that. And with climbing, you get run out above your next bolt, and you're still trying very hard, and you risk taking like a 20-foot fall, not necessarily hitting the ground, but it can be scary. And when you get scared, it definitely holds you back. When you're able to overcome that fear, you're able to succeed and climb harder.
And did you have to learn that too along the way as far as addressing that fear factor, or is that something that was part of your background so you were able to move with that?
Both. I think I was able to learn it quicker, but there's definitely a learning curve of like I'm too scared to climb to do the next move because I'm scared of falling. Having that like fear of the fall in the back of your mind it holds you back so much, and you'd be like, I can't do the next move, like I'm too scared. And having to overcome that, honestly, it's just pushing past that and taking those falls and knowing you're going to be okay. But there was a learning curve, for sure. And there still is a learning curve. I get scared. There's lots of different kinds of climbing, and there's some I'm more comfortable with, and others I'm still more scared with.
And that leads us into, some of us aren't as familiar with climbing. Can you take us a little bit through the different types of climbing that you do and that you've done?
Sure. So my love and passion is it goes with sport climbing. So you're climbing like the face of the rock. You're usually grabbing like crimps or like jugs, and there's the person who's bolted that line. They go up with a drill and they drill a hole, and then they pound a bolt with a hanger on it, or you can clip what's called a quick draw, and it's like 2 carabiners with webbing between them. And so that's what stops you from falling to the ground. You hang those as you climb up, and then you clip your rope through it. And that's my favorite climbing, like just climbing like blank faces with almost no holds, and you don't think it's possible. Then there's bouldering, where you have no ropes. You're just climbing on boulders. They can be really little, which are called usually low balls, maybe 6 to 8 feet tall, and then you can get into high ball boulder problems, which can go upwards of like 30 and even 30 plus feet. And you have crash pads below you, which are like thick, dense pieces of foam, and then usually friends that spot you while you try and climb this really hard boulder, and you go up the hardest way possible. And a lot of times you fall off the top. And then there's trad climbing, where you're climbing the crack, and you're placing gear as you go up it, and that gear is removable, so it doesn't stay in the rock. And then there's some other types of climbing that go off that. There's like aid climbing, where you're placing gear and you're pulling on it, which goes more into like big wall stuff, like what Tommy Caldwell and Kevin Jorgensen were doing on the Dawn Wall project. They didn't aid up it. They did, however, free it. But a lot of people will aid up, like out in El Cap, because it's too difficult to climb.
And thank you so much for that. And then also I know that there's a rating system for sports climbing. Could you kind of give us a little tutorial in the rating system and explain to us where you're at?
Sure. So with bouldering, they go with V grades. You start at V0 and it goes all the way up to like I think V15. There might be like a V16 wandering around somewhere. And so it's V0 is obviously easiest, and then as the numbers go up, it gets harder. My hardest send is like V9. I've been working on some V10s, but as the grades jump, the jump seems to get bigger. So like V1 0 to V1 doesn't seem like too bad of a jump, but like V7 to V8, you're just like I feel like you skip something in between. Like they get harder like faster, in my opinion. And then with sport climbing, you go on like the 5 scale. So there's like, it'll be 5, 6, 5, 7. And then when you get to like 5, 10, they add letters next to them. So like A, B, C, and it goes up to D. And so like they're just staggered a little bit more so that you can get more differences out of it. Because obviously 5, 10 to 5, 11, they add some letters so that you can get more grades. And my hardest send just last month was a 14A, which was my goal this year. So I'm pretty psyched on that. So I don't know. It gets harder. Like I would love to one day send a 15A, but that would be like a very long-term goal of maybe in 10 years I might be able to do it, but it's hard. Not very many people climb that hard.
And so, where this year you did the 14A, where did you do
that? Down in southern Colorado in the San Luis Valley, out in the town of Del Norte. My friend was bolting on private property with permission of the landowner. And so we were out there bolting. He's been down there for a couple months. He bolted that one. And I also got to bolt probably one of my proudest sends out there because I got to bolt it. So that was my first bolting experience. And at the time, after I sent it, it was the hardest thing I'd send for a week until I sent the 14A. But the line I bolted down there, I named it Green Eggs and Ham, because I like Dr. Seuss. And that one, it changed my aspect in climbing. I definitely have a lot more respect for lines that I get on now. There's a lot of work that goes into bolting a face. I mean, a lot of cleaning, a lot of cleaning goes into most walls. Less like when it's limestone, there's a lot of crumbling stuff. And to make it clean enough for people to climb, I mean, it took me probably 2 weeks to get it to where it was like actually climbable. And so that was a very unique experience and definitely changed my vision of rock climbing.
It gave you a different respect, right, for people who had bolted previously, right?
Yeah. So.
And do you aspire to do that again? I mean, would you like to do another one?
I would love to. It is a lot of work, and also quite a bit of money goes into it. You know, bolting isn't cheap. I was able to borrow the drill, and I was actually provided the bolts and the hangers. But, I mean, like the drill costs, you know, quite a few $100s, a drill that's powerful enough to bolt, and then each hanger, you know, is a couple dollars, and each bolt's a couple dollars, and when you get like 10 of them on the wall, you know, that route just costs you, you know, probably a couple $100s, and it's very difficult to be able to afford to be a bolter in the climbing world, because most of us climbers we work as little as possible and climb as much as possible. But it's definitely something I would like to do more of if the opportunity comes along my way.
And what have been some of your favorite climbs that you've done, or places that you've climbed?
Sure. So like one of my favorite places to climb is actually in Wyoming, in Ten Sleep, Wyoming. The canyon's beautiful. The camping's great. It's cooler in the summertime. Right now, it's about 110 degrees in Salt Lake City. It's hot. And yeah, the town's great. Super small. The climbing, I love climbing on limestone, and it's all limestone up there. It's definitely one of my favorite destinations to go to in the summertime. As far as some favorite, I like learn to climb, so it's got a little piece, in my heart, a little place there. A lot of firsts for me, like a lot of firsts of the grades, first, first time taking like a big fall, yeah, first time hanging draws, stuff like that. So I'll always love American fork. Uh, Not a lot of people like it, so that's also kind of why I like it. Again, it goes off of, oh, that one's not very good, you shouldn't do it, so I'm going to go do it. And I usually have a lot of fun on it.
So see, that rebel aspect comes back every once in a
Yeah.
while now, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Now, aside from climbing, are there things that you do to train as far as to be in shape and to prepare for climbs?
There are. If you push yourself too hard too quickly, and not I haven't been climbing that long, so my tendon strength is very weak. My muscles definitely overpower my tendons, and your tendons can be kind of weak. So sometimes you end up with a lot of hand injuries, and I have had to battle some blown tendons in my hands, for just trying to either train too hard too quickly or climb something too hard too fast. It's a little more difficult to train while living on the road because I don't have access to a gym consistently. But when I do, my training will consist of, pretty much focusing on my weaknesses. Like I'm very good at crimping on very small holds. And so when I go into the gym, I'll train the opposite of that. I'll grab like big pinches, like slopers. I'll do like compression moves. Everything that I'm bad at. I will lift weights. So yeah, there's a lot that goes in the training. The more you can train, the faster you can get obviously stronger and reach more of your goals. It's amazing at what the climbing community has created with all the new gyms. People will go in and they'll train in the gym and they might not climb outside very much for the first year. Then they have to get over the head game, but the second they get over that head game and go outside, I mean they're climbing so much harder than people were a couple years ago in their first year of climbing. It's just amazing. With the proper training and the gyms these days, a lot of people will train. I'll do like 3 days on, 1 day off for about 6 weeks, and then I go and try and climb my project. And I mean, it's amazing how fast you can see progress.
We have a question that came in from Twitter that wants to know what your scariest moment on a route has been.
Um, a couple years ago, climbing out in Red Rocks, I was pretty high above, probably a third bolt, and it came to the point where if I was going to like miss the next move, I was gonna possibly deck, and I went for it anyways, and I came very close to the ground, and that's probably my scariest moment. I don't mind when I get super run out and take big falls higher up on the wall, but when you're pulling hard moves and that ground gets close very quickly, it's scary because I mean no one likes getting hurt. I mean it sucks. You'll have to stop climbing for a little while, and that's the worst.
What are do you have goals right now as far as do you have any plans for climbs this summer or either short-term or long-term climbing goals?
I do. So I'm heading up to Ten Sleep, Wyoming, probably Tuesday morning, and I'll be there for about a week. And I've got my eye not necessarily on a particular climb, but there's a wall called the Blue Wall, and the easiest thing that goes up the Blue Wall is 13D. So I kind of want to try and put down another 14A while I'm up there. Unfortunately, I'm only up there for a week, so we'll see what happens. And then I'm heading to Squamish in August, and my goals for bouldering is I'd really like to try and send a V10 by the end of the year. So I've been training a lot this last month for power and like increasing my finger strength and my core to hopefully.
And sign off with both of us. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Women in Power Active, and hopefully we will see you again soon. Thanks. Bye-bye.